in your experience, does that lead to love? Or is it just wealthy people finding, compatible women who are,
Trophy wives.
trophy wives?
Not in my world. My guys won't date a woman who's just beautiful only. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I've had
Really?
I've had
Because you
supermodels.
see that all the
I have
time.
had supermodels, and I still do in my database. And the guy would be like, Gina, she's like boring. She's got nothing to say.
Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of I Hate Dating Apps. I am Daniel.
And I am Gina. And today we're terribly excited because I'm seriously so looking forward to this. I love kind of hearing other people's opinions about alternatives to dating apps or supplements to dating apps because I'm always trying to figure out a way to get out of them. And I have experience with matchmakers, but I think my experience with matchmakers occurred maybe so long ago that I'm not quite sure what matchmaking is anymore. But every time I've tried to kind of go, well, let me just try to see what this is about. My experience has been that I've either been matched with men who are significantly older than me
When you use matchmaking
when
services.
I've used matchmaking services, and then I was on the receiving end of the match. In other words, like they were working for the gentleman who was paying for the service, and I slipped in for free because I felt
Because
like
you're
they
a
were,
woman and
they were.
life is unfair. That's why.
Yeah, well, I wasn't the one paying, right? So it's like whoever, I get it, but it's like it's almost like they were like, here's like 50 cards of people of all these women. You pick the ones that you want to go out with, and I just happen to be like kind of a number. I felt a little bit like that. I mean, there's other matchmaking services that really tried to connect two people just based on how well they thought they were going to match. They put a little bit more effort into it. And then I also had an experience where I was being recruited as the client, and I was asked to pay $25,000 for a 6-month trial, during which time I would have 6 guaranteed dates. And I was like, okay, well, like, so if I pay that amount of money, can I look at what I'm purchasing? Like, do you have a database of men that you could send me so that I could look at them? They're like, that's not how it works. Like, no, it's privacy where we'd be, whatever. I'm like, wait, so I'm paying $25,000,
almost $5,000 a date,
a date, and I don't get to see what I'm buying. Like, I have to pay in order to see like who's even in your roster of people that you might set me up with. So anyway, I don't mean to sound so negative, but one of the reasons why I decided that dating apps were probably the only option for me was because of these experiences. But I know a lot of our listeners and viewers have the same maybe kind of opinions that I might have about matchmaking. So we decided today to invite a couple of matchmakers who are
By the way, the second oldest profession in mankind.
Is it? Is matchmaking the second oldest profession? I don't know.
They seem to have been around for
That's
for
true.
generations.
I mean, that's how you met people.
Yeah, right. And that's how you met people. That's how families, like how daughters and sons of royal families met. They were like royal matchmakers. So, I mean, it's something that has been around as long as history.
Well, and it still happens in a lot of countries.
It still happens in a lot of countries, and there are professional services you've experienced. But I think, as we'll find out today, probably there's like a lot of variations, and it's probably very different today than it was in the past, right?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to hear. And also, I think the two women who are joining us have their own very specific approach that is probably different than what most people are thinking. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on Anika Rashaun and Gina Hendrix. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies. And please, if you could introduce yourselves. Let's start with Anika.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anika Rashaun. I am a matchmaker at 3-Day Rule Matchmaking, and I also have my own date coaching business called Ask Anika.
Hi there. I'm Gina Hendrix. I have my own matchmaking company. I've been a matchmaker for 16 years. And I also have, so I do private matchmaking for men at a very high level. And then I give all that intel in a coaching program for women.
Okay, so what is modern day matchmaking? How do you guys go about your jobs? And I heard Gina say you work with men. You don't have any female clients. Is that what I heard?
Right. I've helped women get their money back from other matchmaking companies, put it like that. That's how passionate I am about this stuff. You know what I mean? Yes.
But you work with men. Men are the clients that pay, and then you recruit women that you think are quality women for the men who are your clients.
Yeah, it's a combo. So the men hire me for actual personal matchmaking. And then I have a database of women. So I start with the database, but then I also go and personally scout and recruit women as I need to based on as I get to know the client better. But these days, again, social media, all the women are coming at me. So I used to let women fill out a free profile for me. Free profile, they could be in the database, but 99.9% of the profiles that I get or I got, they're just never good enough to send to the client. And so it was
Mm.
pointless to let women fill out a free profile and they'd get no help or anything. So I do charge a fee now for women to be in the database, but then they get on a 30-minute Zoom with me where I actually get in there and I give them real help and advice in that little session for them to fix their pictures, because if their pictures aren't good enough, it's just wasting everybody's time, so I charge I charge a fee. I don't know, small, depends on how you look at it. $475 is mine, only because, and the only reason I started out $250, right? When the social media stuff and the women started coming at me, I was like, oh, okay, $250. I was charging $250 for the profiles. All right. Didn't slow them down. They were still like this. And I was like chained to my computer doing my meetings like this. And then I said, okay, I'm going to raise it to $375 because we got to slow these ladies down. Did not slow them down. Still, like I just had no time to even breathe. So now I've just raised it to $475, and thank God that's finally slowing it down.
Hey, man, that's capitalism,
Yeah.
supply and demand. Totally.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at with everything. So that's how I do it. And then, but I'm fully transparent. So, the women see photos, the men of the men and but I don't share last names. I protect everybody's privacy. I also
Right.
coordinate all the details of the first date, and then they show up and they meet, and then they text me after the date and they let me know how it went.
All right. What
Wow.
about you, Anika?
Yeah. So, I mean, with the way that my company runs it, we are a boutique, but boutique in the way of like there's so many matchmaking companies, like I said, like across the United States, internationally. I have some matchmaking companies where there's only one matchmaker, some matchmaking companies where they have a team of 10, team of 25, team of 100. I would say our team is probably about like anywhere between like 30 and 40. We do
Mm.
work outside of like multiple cities across the United States. So, Los Angeles, California, San Francisco, California, San Diego, OC, and then on the East Coast, New York, Boston, Miami, Chicago, DC. So it's definitely, a lot larger in that scale. And then in terms of the way it works, yes, you can be a client, you can, pay a fee to work with a matchmaker. And then they do, of course, work on making sure they're pairing you with a certain amount of matches within a certain amount of time based off of what membership you would like to move forward with. And then you can also be in the database as well. There is no fee to join the database. You can just join the database, but you also have to like look at the scale and like how you're working with clients too. Like if I had my own matchmaking company, of course it would make sense to, not have a whole bunch of people like, coming through the doors and like have to sift through a whole bunch of people who just want to sign up and make a profile, versus being able to have the manpower to be able to do that. So again, it's kind of like what I tell people is put your hat in the box anywhere you possibly can, even when it comes to matchmaking versus dating apps. People tell me all the time, like, if I come on as a client, does that mean I need to delete my dating app? And I say, no, not in any way, shape, or form. Because my thing
Mm.
is like, not everything works for everyone, but, putting yourself out there and putting your energy out there in that way of like wanting to be intentional with dating, that's really what's going to get you to move forward in terms of
But
finding like
But yeah.
some type of relationship.
you work with men and women, though,
We
right,
do. That
Anika?
is
Like
correct.
your clients are paying men and paying women.
If you
Yes,
guys don't, yeah,
they're paying men and they're
yeah.
paying women.
And if I may ask, so Gina, you said the women in your service who pay $475 to be in the database. So
Yeah.
how much do the men pay to be your clients? And the same question for Anika as well.
So it's interesting because I also do things differently in the way I do my packages for my guys, because like I've done big deal, right? I've done big deals like $100,000, and I have clients all over the world.
Woo!
Buy in Paris and New York, and sure, I've done $100,000 deals and $75,000, 50,000. That's nothing, but to be honest, what I do now, and I like it better because I think it's a bit of a game when the introductions are based on a time frame. Like we're going to set you up with 6 months. It's kind of bullshit in a way. Sorry, but I'm very honest, because the reality is you really think you're going to find that perfect person for that person in that limited time frame. I just don't think it's realistic, to be honest. So what I do is I set it up as a certain amount of introductions with no time frame. Like let's say a guy has 8 introductions, right? For $25,000, or sometimes it depends, because it also depends on how hard his search is, right? But if a total strange guy comes in without a referral, I would much rather do 25K. To me, that's a bit of a low buy-in, and it's 8 introductions, or sometimes 6 introductions, depending again how difficult his search is going to be, and then I can decide whether I like him or not. And most of my guys, either I get them what they want and they just renew and buy another 8 introductions, or if I don't get them what they want in the 8, they like what I'm doing and they stay with me and they just purchase another 8 introductions. But it's not based on a time frame, because what I find is some clients can be easier and then we run through the 8 introductions, but for whatever reason it's not the right match and they get 8 more. Or some can be more difficult as you work with them. You don't know really for sure until you actually get in there and start working with them. And so if I have a limited introductions with a guy and I say, listen, if you don't like her, go out with her. And if there's not chemistry, because that's not anything I can control, but if you go out with her and she wasn't as I presented, if she wasn't as I described her to be, that I liked her, that she was great, and they've seen pictures, but if somehow Gina did not deliver as I said, I don't even count that introduction against you, because I can stand by what I'm doing, and I'm really here to make a difference. So
I got so many questions that I don't even know where to start. But all right, quick question for Gina. So what does success look like then? So you said you have a
that's a great
success,
question.
yeah.
Yeah.
So is it say I like this person, I'm gonna start dating her, I don't need your services anymore? Like, what does success look like?
Success is usually based on a series of milestones. So in my contract, I think I have it in 3 ways. I think it's whether the relationship hits a year, or they get engaged, or somebody gets it might be either move in together or a baby. And I have those in there because some people show up and they might say they want to get married, but then as the relationship progresses, they stay in a long-term committed relationship, but they decide marriage isn't the thing.
Gotcha.
And so the goals kind of change for different people. So in my contract, I don't have one particular goal. I cover all my bases. So
It's a milestone based.
whichever
Gotcha.
they hit first is when I get my extra money.
How about your service, Anika? So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting because I agree with that. I think that success looks different to different
Yeah,
people.
for sure.
Like some people are joining and they're at the age of 30 years old, and maybe what they're looking for is to get married because everybody in their social circle is at that stage of life. Someone may be 71 years old and they may need a matchmaker and they're not looking to get married. They're looking for a life partner, someone to share the rest of their life with. So I think that it's hard to put a number on success because success does mean different things to different people. You can also be in your 40s and someone wants kids and someone does not. So those things can't necessarily be aligned. Circling back on another thing, talking about like time frames and things like that. Just to clarify that, I think it's really important to know that like the time frames, I do understand, your point of sometimes you start working with someone, you realize, wow, I thought they were going to be an easy client. You get, halfway through and you're like, okay, wow, it's a little bit tougher to match them than I thought. But I also do think that depending on if you're working with a team of people and you have different manpower, you're able to, I guess, like have additional resources in terms of like churning out certain results, right? Also, when it comes to like, let's say a 3-month membership, the 3-month membership is more so for the matchmaker to stay within a certain cadence to make sure that we're like moving the process forward rather than like, if we get to the third month and, you only have 2 matches, we're not going to say, well, the 3 months is up, that's it. That's not how it works. But it is kind of, a good template to kind of maybe like stay by. No one is ever cut off by the end of their membership because they haven't, because maybe like the second match took too long to find, for instance.
How much are your memberships?
The most common ones I would say are like, for the 3 month, it's $5,900. That's what that starting price is. And then $8,900 for the 6 month. There are other like VIP options as well, but those are like the most two common across the board.
And is that the same price for men or women in your service?
Yes.
So Gina, I mean, not to oversimplify this, but if I may, sort of play the devil's advocate here a little bit. You're a boutique service, and men are your clients. And let's assume here that not most men can't afford to pay $25,000.
That's a good
to meet
assumption.
A woman,
Yeah.
okay. So
that feels like a low number to me, but okay.
Right. Well, okay. So, but let's start with a low number. Even with a low number, I'm saying there's not a whole lot of men out there who can afford to pay $25,000 to meet a woman.
Fair enough.
Much less more than that, right? So with that said, I'm not surprised that when you were not charging women for their profiles that you were getting bombarded, because what woman out there doesn't want to meet a guy who doesn't
bat an eye?
Yeah, doesn't bat an eye at paying $25,000, $50,000, $70,000, $80,000 to
Fair enough. But the thing is, the important thing is, for me, I also would never set up a woman who just wants a guy for money. Like, that's not what I do. I mean, my youngest client, my guy has been 25. My youngest, I have a few young ones, and then oldest that I've ever had is 89. So my guys range in age, but if a girl shows up and she fills out a profile for me, or a woman, and it feels like, because there's a way to know, right? If she fills out the profile and she's like, because I asked specific age, and they're like any, and they've got no preferences really on like how old the guy is. She's never going to get access.
But inherent in your service, though, for the women who come to your service to find a man, they come with the understanding inherent that they're not going to meet a guy who is making $60,000 a year, right? I mean, it's
a lot of the women too in mine, especially now. Honestly, now that I charge for the profiles, it's almost like a better caliber in some ways of women. These are women that are CEOs. They're top of they keep themselves in better shape. They've got more experience in the world. They're a little more sophisticated. So it's interesting how being kind of forced to kind of charge for the profiles also opened my eyes to kind of pre-qualifying just a different level of lady as well,
So who are your typical who are good other than people who don't make 60,000 or probably even 100,000 a year? I would say would be also very low, because in a big metropolitan city like all of us live in, $100,000 maybe gets you an apartment anymore. Is that the primary criteria for the people that might be a good candidate for matchmaking services? Yeah. What is a good barometer for who makes a good candidate?
I mean, to be honest with you, if we're just talking about first just how much they're making, I mean, I've had people who make like 30,000, but maybe they come from a family who can afford that. So maybe
they had a savings account
Exactly. And then you have people who make that themselves. So again, like I look at it as, there's always an option out there for someone. And at the end of the day, I have people who get on the phone and, they said that they make over $500,000, but maybe they're not good with their finances and they don't have that as, just income to do, other discretionary things. So at the end of the day, I look at it as like, it's not for everyone. And that's the purpose of hopping on a phone call with, one matchmaking company or another matchmaking company. You shop around, you see which one you get the best vibe from, which one you fit the best with, which one you can afford the most, which one you feel like aligns more with your vision and your goals and what you're trying to get to. And that's not going to be the same one every time for every single person.
So taking the money, the financial aspect of this out. So who comes to you guys? Like what's a typical profile of somebody who comes to a matchmaking service? Are they just sick and tired of dating apps, or like what is the primary reason why people come to matchmakers?
I think certainly for me, and I think maybe because of my fee structure, it does kind of pre-qualify those guys who are looking more for a substantial relationship, right? Because I find that if a guy doesn't usually hire me, he falls into one of two categories. Either he's not really looking for a real relationship because he doesn't want to spend that kind of money. He knows how, because you can do apps and you can do a lot of less expensive things, or he's a guy that just wants to play around. So I think that the men that work with me, they want a serious relationship. They know how hard it is to sift through it on their own. A lot of times they've tried dating apps. A lot of times they're still on dating apps in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the fact that, that everybody is set up, that I set up, are pre-screened and vetted, especially if they're here in LA. I go and I meet everybody in person. Like I want to meet my guys will fly in to meet me in person. I'm not that keen on necessarily signing a guy, just meeting him through Zoom or just doing Zoom interviews. I mean, I have to obviously, because again, I have women all over the world too, and I have to do Zooms with those ladies. But if they're here in LA, I do try to meet them in person. I've been doing that for years. COVID made it easier, certainly, to do Zooms, but it's better to get a feel of somebody's energy in person and just get a feel for them,
I guess it's inherent in that I mean, if a guy is willing to pay, that
100,000.
whatever amount, I mean, it's a significant amount, even if you're really wealthy, but it shows some kind of commitment that you're looking for a
Sure.
relationship, right?
For,
Yeah.
in my world,
So I
yes.
can see that. And then you are sort of, because I imagine these are also very busy people who
Sure.
don't have the time to go on 1,000 dates to meet
Right.
1,000 women.
Right.
So you're kind of like, you're the Bachelor. You're the show Bachelor,
I
sort of
am
inherent.
actually the real life modern day bachelor. I have my
Right.
one bachelor, but I don't have one. I have like 7 to 8.
I'm going to ask you more of a philosophical question though, then, because I mean, I'm familiar with The Bachelor. I'm familiar with the concept. I'm going to be a little, cynical here. I don't know. At the end of the day, when you find quote unquote quality men and quality women, I mean, maybe you are finding compatibility there, and you are working on finding compatibility, but does that necessarily equate to love? Does that I mean, in your experience, does that lead to love, or is it just, wealthy people finding, compatible women who are,
Trophy wives.
trophy wives?
Not in my world. My guys won't date a woman who's just beautiful only. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's
Really?
I've had
'Cause
supermodels.
you see that all the
I have
time.
had supermodels, and I still do, in my database, and the guy would be like, Gina, she's like boring. She's got nothing to say.
Yeah.
They really want layers. And and it's truly a myth, uh, in when they say that, because at least in my experience, and maybe Anika can speak to this too, but in my experience, these guys that are smart, successful, and and have a lot going on, they want a woman that they can be proud of when they take to the events, that can, and also here's the other thing. Their friends' wives want a woman
Yeah.
that they can respect and admire as well. Otherwise, they're just going to be getting, getting the getting
The
But
side
Gina,
eye.
but
Yeah.
Gina,
Eye roll.
but Gina, but that is a I mean, not to be, not to get too nitty gritty here. A trophy wife, in my point of view, is not just a beautiful woman, not just an appendage that you have in your arm. A
Mhm.
trophy wife is the one who a guy can quote unquote be proud of to take to a
Okay, fair
party, right? Yeah. So it's I mean, I don't judge. To
Listen,
each
the
his
women,
own.
here's the thing,
Yeah.
the women want that too. You think they don't want a trophy husband?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say it's definitely on both sides. I mean, like
Both
at the end of the day, we all want someone that we can feel proud of and
for
to be
sure.
outside with and, represent really well on our arm.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I do think that, yes, when it comes to people who make a sufficient amount of money, I do see basically one of the two. It's like the people who come our way and they're like, I don't have the time to go out on a whole bunch of dates,
Mhm.
so I'm just going to, enlist some help. Or they're people who just want to play around, and you can kind of tell that.
Right.
It's very easy to like tell that through a series of questions and conversations and just feeling their energy and like hearing what their goals are. And then realistically, if they really wanted to do that, like if they have a lot of money, if they're well off, they're good looking, like they can also just go back on the apps as well. So like they're
Right.
also less willing to like ask for help. So I feel like you have to like read between the lines, and that's our job as matchmakers and just as people who, work in this service industry type of business to be able to decipher who would be the best fit mutually, not just who wants to work with us, but who do we want to work with as well.
Right.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Our sponsor, Take My Face Off, makes swiping off your makeup just as easy as swiping past a bad profile. Seriously, the MIDI from Take My Face Off is this adorable facial mitt that makes skin cleansing faster, easier, and more thorough than any other method I've tried. I seriously love this product. Next time you're tempted to grab a face wipe, use a MIDI instead. It's just as fast, but it's better for your skin and the planet. Get free shipping with the discount code DATING at takemyfaceoff.com.
I think essentially you guys are like that first filter, right, for your clients. It's because, and you're right. I mean, if you're just trying to play around, if you're a rich guy, you're just trying to play around. They don't really need your services, right? Because they can
I don't
play
think they
around on
have
their
that
own.
much. They don't
Yeah,
think
they
it's
can.
that hard for them to find.
Right. They can play around on their own. So if they're hiring a professional to find a match for them, then it's inherent in that ask. They're looking for somebody more serious, and they want to find somebody who matches their, like, without judgment. You're looking for someone who sort of fits your lifestyle, fits, your level that you are in society. With all of that said, give us a couple of examples. Like, so what does that process actually look like with some detail? What does that look like when you're actually trying to match two people?
Yeah, what is your process?
Yeah,
You
what's
get a
the
guy,
process?
let's say Daniel is your client.
Let's say Daniel is our client, right? Of course, we have a database of over like 250,000 people, right?
Woo!
So it's
That's a lot to sift through, but that's cool. That's
it's
good.
it's a lot, but also it's 2024. We have technology, so everything
Right.
is very easy with like the push of a button. So you can
Yes.
separate things based off a location. You can separate it based off age range,
Right.
political preference, religion, and so you're really kind of shooting down all of like the general like physical things first, and lifestyle choices first. Do they have kids? Are they divorced? How many kids? Things like that. Height. Those types of things. Some people want to date people with similar backgrounds as them. And then once you kind of whittle that down, then you can kind of say, okay, now
Then in
let's
Daniel's
look
case,
at
it's going to go from 250,000 to maybe 3.2.
well, then we have to talk about what your preferences are, because I'm definitely curious to
Oh,
hear
now we're to
what
zero
that would
then.
look like. But of course, then there's like all the other things, like the intangible things, like what are your values, characteristics, personality traits that you're looking for in a match. If you could put it on a top like 3 or 5 or 10 list, what does that look like? What are the most important things? Like what are nice to haves versus must haves? What are deal breakers? And then that's how you continue to sift that list down to, of
Right.
course, the person that you end up actually matching them with. But yes, in a general sense, we are starting with such a big number, as I was saying before. So we have to start with like, are we doing Pennsylvania or are we doing Boston? You know what I mean? Are we, and then you kind of get it all the way down to the nitty gritty to, once you pass all of those check boxes, I guess you can say, then we're kind of dealing with those tangible things, from tangible things to intangible things, to then, of course, meeting with them and then kind of seeing like, is the vibe there? Because it's kind of your job to be like, well, I know my client, so then I need to get to know this potential match. Do I feel, in this role that they would be a good fit, not just because what's on paper, but because I know these two people, and how confident do I feel about putting them across from each other and seeing if this could be a successful match? And
And,
that's
and
all the
you
match.
and you're also coaching your clients too. Right? If you think that their true selves are not coming across, then you're also helping them. And Gina, you mentioned like with the women on your database, you're also helping with like to present themselves in the light that you think it would be
Yeah.
something that your clients would be going for. So you're helping on both ends to make the match.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Gina, but like I know for me, it's not like everybody who just signs up for matchmaking is in a mentality where they're ready for it necessarily. And I
Mhm.
don't even know if there's a way to say if you're ready for it or not. But I do think that some people have this thought process. I've had a lot of people, they just think that they just gotta sign up, put in an order, and then that's how matchmaking in a general sense works. And that's not how it works. There's a lot of self-work and inner work that also needs to be done in the process, before the process, after the process.
What?
You know,
Self-work? I'm out of here.
to not even just find the person.
I have to work on myself? No.
Yeah, because it's like, it's like, hey, once you find the person, how are you going to maintain the relationship? And that's where
Right.
the coaching comes into play. It's not about just finding the person, but then how can you continue to nourish it down the line?
And Anika, how do you guys, how do you, I understand like the details of the profile. I have all that stuff too, but how do you get to know somebody's physical type?
Yeah, I mean, we're not meeting in person. I mean, unless someone is able to meet in person. We After COVID, like you said, it's gotten
Mhm.
definitely a lot easier to be
Uh-huh.
able to be a million places at once.
Yes.
But we are doing like, video calls, so we are able to like visually see,
No,
what people
I
look
know,
like.
but like when you agree to work with a guy or a girl, how do you know physically their type? Like,
Okay, gotcha. Their physical
mm,
preferences.
yeah,
Gotcha.
like
Yes,
other
yes, yes.
other than blonde hair, blue eyes,
Yeah,
5'2", like,
yeah.
because even saying that, they may go, so for me, I'll tell you, like I do a very hardcore. I think the men don't realize they're being tested, but they're totally being tested. So I find out. I do a call with my guy. He fills out an initial profile, tells me what he's looking. But then I kind of give him a litmus test. I send him profiles to review before he's ever
Mhm,
signed up with me.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I think that a lot of times they think, oh, that's to get them interested in the thing. But no, not really. What it's really about is he going to say yes or no to the ladies I'm sending him? Because I'm so picky about. I know my ladies are phenomenal. So if this guy says no to my ladies, is probably not a guy I want to work with. He's going to be a nightmare potentially. So that's kind of how
Mm.
I gauge things. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes, that's a very good point. Well, again, as you know, like beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right?
It
So
is.
everyone could say, like you said, like blue eyes, blonde hair, and it like, what does that mean in retrospect with all the different people that look different across the world, right? So of course, we're asking for images. We actually ask for like, what do you actually like? Maybe screenshots of what you swiped on in the
That's
past, but
good.
then
Yeah.
also like, who have you dated in the past? Because then you will
Right.
also have those
I
people
know.
that say, you know what, this is what I want. But then I say, but what have you gotten?
Right.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is also a very important part, because I
I
think, again, people will call
yeah.
and they'll sign up for a matchmaking service and they'll just say, I think it's a grocery list. And it's like, I want this, 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 and this. And that's not how it works. So it's nice to know what you like and what your preferences are. But I also want to see like what is, actually normal to your day to day. And
I
what have you
I just
actually.
I want a really, really rich lady with 2 arms and 2 legs. Can you do that for me?
We'll even take one arm.
But then
It's not that picky.
it's a two-way street, right? I say this matchmaking is so hard. It's like trying to solve two Rubik's Cube puzzles at the same time, right? Because yeah, I mean, we might find a rich woman with 2 arms and 2 legs, but she may not like you. You know what I mean? So it's like
Oh,
it's
guarantee she won't like me.
Aw, she
got
would.
no,
Daniel's
it's
cool.
got, but I'm just saying it's like, spinning two plates at the same time. It's very hard because I also think when people are paying for matchmaking, they want everything that's on their list. Whereas you
Right.
hear people who don't do this as a profession, they go, oh yeah, my God, five of my friends are married. I set them up. Well, it's easier that way actually. But when
Right.
somebody's coming to you and they're writing you a check or, wiring money into your account, they want everything on their list,
Well, sure. I mean, they're paying for a filet mignon. They're not gonna want a hamburger, you
I am
know?
in the picky business, no doubt about it. I am in the picky business. Yeah.
So I want to ask for all of the listeners out there who are gonna want to know this exact thing. You work, for the most part, with high net worth individuals, right? On both ends. What are the men like just overwhelmingly looking for? And I know everybody has their own taste, but when you look for women that you know are going to fit the clients that you serve, what are 5 things that like pretty much 90% of all of your clients
Chris,
rattle off? Yeah.
Anika, do you want to take it or do you want me to do it first?
And please,
Yeah, go ahead.
no holds barred. Just be honest because we need honesty. We're not in a shit show because we're being honest with each other. We're in a shit show because people are very not self-aware.
I mean, honestly, I don't even think I need 5. I think I need 3. I think they want somebody that they're attracted to. So, and again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So they want somebody who's attractive, right? Beautiful, handsome, if it's a woman or a man, fit. And then they want somebody who, well, okay, maybe I'll do 5. All right. So attractive, handsome, or fit, right? The most attractive person that they find attractive. And then very fit. Everybody seems to want fit, especially if
Yep.
they're fit, they want fit. Even if they're not fit, sometimes they want fit. They want somebody who is has their life in order, so they're not circling the drain financially. Nobody wants that. They want somebody who's interesting and and has things to say and could talk about things. And then if there's a fifth one, I'd have to say probably somebody who maybe has the time for a relationship. It's not so busy they can't date.
That,
or take time to
I mean,
date.
that just seems like most people I know. That seems like most women I know. But there's got to be a je ne sais quoi. There's got to be a secret sauce.
Chemistry. Then beyond that, it's really chemistry.
That's what it is. And that's what seems to be the misfit, because you're right. Like, I was listening to your list and I was like, I wonder if there's anything. And I'm like, for the most part, it's very similar, fit, healthy, active lifestyle,
Yeah.
even if they don't have one themselves.
Right.
Someone who is, financially literate, someone who, has a stable career, ambitious. I think that the family thing, again, is very dependent on what they're coming for, where they're at in life. And then I would say like emotional intelligence, aka somebody who is intentional and who wants a relationship, hence why they're also kind of using a matchmaking service. So all these things are very similar. And it's funny because I sometimes get on calls and people will say those similar things, or they'll say sense of humor or something like that. But these are all things that I think that people, when they hear them, they're like, well, doesn't everybody want that?
Right.
And it's like, yes, but the hard part is like, as Gina was saying, it's about the chemistry. It's like, it's the fit, because you can have 5 people with those personality traits, but like, do they also physically look your type? Do they also just fit with, the energy that you bring to the table? And those are the things that I feel like people are trying to
Well, gosh,
hire
how do you
out for
pinpoint
help.
that?
Well, that's the thing. No, it's like,
How do you pinpoint that?
Like everybody wants those top 5 things, but you can only pick 3 of them.
I mean, I feel like I bring all 5 things to the table, but I don't have any millionaires knocking down my door. But yeah, like so for instance, I've heard a girlfriend of mine, but she was saying that if you look at all the high net worth men, they are with, for the most part, very feminine women, right? And a lot of highfalutin, makes their own money, has their shit together women are going to embody a little bit more masculine. Maybe do you find that that's like a little bit of a secret sauce there, like somebody who kind of has their shit together but also is very feminine? Or where are you on that?
I mean, that definitely would be a magic a magic recipe for sure. I mean, I will tell you, and I've never met Amal Clooney, but a girl that I know, she sat next to her at a restaurant in New York, and this was, a few years ago or so. And she said that, she's this high-powered barrister and, goes against human rights things and big deal. And the girl said, I was just shocked that she was so feminine. She was so feminine. And you see, and that is kind of that is a great magic combination. And it is hard because when you're doing life on your own, and especially the older you get, the more you got to get your hustle on, and you got to, and it is hard to kind of switch gears. You have to really, really be very intentional and self-aware to know that. But yeah, I mean, that's the bummer. It doesn't work that way for men, but for women, we have to kind of ride those two different
yeah things. You kind of have to like be in one mode and then be in another. Yeah, I agree.
Getting around it.
So we're getting to the end of our session here, but most of our listeners are not going to be able to, are not going to either afford to or pay for matchmaking services. So if there are like one piece of advice that you have for us mere mortals, not the George Clooney's of the world who have,
or Amal Clooney's of the world,
Amal Clooney's of the world who have the world, at their disposal. If you could give one advice to people who would not be on matchmaking services or contract matchmaking services. What advice would you have to them, whether they're on dating apps or doing in real life, how to go about finding that person?
And it could be positive. It could also be negative, because
Yeah.
I know, I've watched you guys' Instagrams, and I know you guys are like, don't do this, ladies. Don't do this, gentlemen. So it could be like a plethora of things. Drop us some nuggets here.
Yeah, it's interesting because I look at it like, everyone deserves love, right? There's always like, a top to every pot. So yes, matchmaking, and I always say this to everyone, like it's not for everybody, not, no one is for everyone, and that's okay. That's why there are so many different avenues out there, whether it's, going on the dating apps yourself, or, asking friends to set you up, or you deciding that every single day for a month, you're going to go to a different coffee shop and, maybe walk up to someone who you find, you fancy, whatever it may be. It's like, I look at it like putting yourself out there, being intentional, and finding what works for you, finding what your avenue is, because maybe you may not be able to afford matchmaking and have someone match you on your behalf. But then there's coaching services, and there's a lot of coaching out there. So many different people. You can find someone that, has the same vision of what you're looking for, fits your vibe, work with them. And maybe the things that you need to work on can also just help you in terms of how you normally go out in there date anyway. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like, I can't afford this service, all hope for me is lost. It's kind of like, if this doesn't work for you, then what else are you doing to be intentional about your love life and your dating life to, make changes and see the changes that you want?
I like that. Yeah, being intentional. I think that's really
Yeah,
key.
and then making the steps and not just sitting back and going, hey, nothing's happening. Yeah.
I'm waiting for them to knock on my door. No,
Why aren't they knocking?
Well, the people that I've seen get into relationships, outside of matchmaking, are those people that they never got into a negative mindset, right? So when you get into a negative mindset and you think there's no good people out there, or that you don't feel good about yourself, or that all hope is lost, well, that's not going to get you anywhere. But the people that I have seen get into relationships, they were determined and they were unstoppable, and they went down every road, maybe get in the database of a matchmaker and go on the dating apps. But you've got to have the right positive attitude. And I think the positive attitude is really what is kind of the magic sauce for people who ended up finding what they wanted. They had the right attitude all the time. They were never like, because, and a lot of single people get that way. And that's like, the death nail in the coffin. And you can't think that. You've still got to stay in a positive mindset and be open-minded. You got to be friendly. If you want to meet people in the real world, you can't just go to events and then stand around and just chat with your friends and not mingle. You got to mingle. You got to get friendly, and I would join groups that you love doing, activities that you love doing. And the more you do these things, the more people you meet, and the more people you meet could introduce you to other people. And, but it starts with the mindset, and you got to stay in a positive mindset.
Yeah, you gotta put yourself out there, because you're right. At the end of the day, it's like, if you're kind of assuming that you're not going to find anyone, if you're assuming that there's no good people out there, then
right. So the further you go into your cave, the further you go into your cave. So you're in that cave, and the longer you stay in there, the deeper into the cave you go, and the harder it is for you to come back from it. To be honest with you, you just gotta push on.
Yep.
Well, I guess we need to rename this I Love Dating Apps.
I don't know if we go that far.
Or how about dating with an open mind? That's the new name.
Dating with an open mind. I mean, we joke that we hate dating apps, and there are a lot of
it's just
problems with dating apps, but it's also a tool, right? At the end of the day.
I think the majority of people who don't like the dating apps, because really the dating apps are the dating Olympics these days. And so if you're showing up to the dating apps, like, to compete in the Olympics, and you're not prepared to compete in the Olympics, and you've got low level average photos, and you're just not doing anything right to stand out, then you're going to hate the dating apps, and you're going to get frustrated, because you're, with low level average, it really begins and ends with the photos. Low level average photos, you're never going to connect with the best people.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right. So be intentional, be positive, and have good photos.
There you go.
At the very least. And work out and have your shit together. And I'm just kidding. Ladies, you dropped some amazing nuggets. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
This has been another great episode of I Hate Dating Apps. You can't love with them.
And you can love without them.
I hate dating apps.
Hey, app daters and haters, tell us your dating app experience and we just might bring you on as a guest for future episodes. Head to IHateDatingApps.com and click on the big yellow Tell Us Your Story button. You can't miss it. We've got a lot of fun content on our social channels, so please follow us at I Hate Dating Apps on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And on Instagram, we're at I Hate Dating Apps Pod. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast.